Welcome to Coach's Corner, everyone, on this beautiful Saturday. I am your host, Coach Paul Tripoli. We have a great interview for you today on the show. Dr. Gaylon McCollough, world-renowned surgeon, founder of the McCollough Plastic Surgery Center, and a center on his early 1960s football team, became his doctor. Actually did surgery on Coach Bryant and became a confidant and friend of Coach Bryant. Dr. McCollough has written over 25 books. His latest three are my favorites, though, starting out with Victory in the Game of Life, which is a great book. My favorite, Coach Paul Bear Bryant, The Long Shadow of Coach Paul Bear Bryant. And today we're going to talk about his latest book, The Saban Process, The Bryant Promise, and he also includes the Lombardi Paradigm. So we talk all about that. Thanks for joining the show today, folks. The show is going to last about 40 minutes, the interview. But first, we want to talk about our great sponsors. You know, here on Coach's Corner, we try to inspire and educate the mind to think, the heart to feel, and the body to act. And today's interview doesn't exemplify that any more than anything. So we're gonna go to a commercial break. Thanks for our great sponsors. Give us 2 minutes. So go call your friends, go to the bathroom, go get something to drink because you don't want to miss this. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Thanks for listening to Coach's Corner.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
Hey, Bill, some game, huh?
I haven't really noticed, Paul.
What? The biggest game of the year?
I've been looking over my insurance. Talk about problems I'm trying to figure out.
Well, do what I did. Call the Seiler Agency. They showed me what I needed and what I didn't. They even saved me money. Now, instead of worrying about my insurance, I can worry about the big game.
Contact the Seiler Agency at 476-7443 for all of your insurance needs. Your independent agent for home, auto, boat, RV, commercial, general liability, life, and sound investment strategies. Call 476-7443 today.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
Welcome to Coach's Corner, everybody. I'm your host, Coach. Special guest today, Alabama football brother, Dr. Gaylon McCollough. Gaylon, thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks, Paul. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be with a brother in the Alabama football family.
Oh, my gosh. You're so busy, Dr. McCollough, world-renowned surgeon, former center for the Crimson Tide, 61 through 64. Let's start from the beginning, Gaylon, because a lot of people may not know your story as well as I do. You grew up in Enterprise, Alabama. Talk a little bit about your mom and dad and your siblings.
Well, I'm an only child to start with. My dad was a small-town plumber to begin with, and my mother worked his little plumbing shop and was his receptionist and bookkeeper. And we were a lower middle class family, and very tight, very close, hardworking people. Most of my family were farmers at that time. And I was the first of either side of my family to be able to graduate from college.
Oh my gosh. Where did you get your thirst for learning and living and writing? You've written 25 books, your latest here, The Saban Process, The Bryant Promise, and you also include the Lombardi Paradigm. And I like how you interweave their mind, body, and soul, kind of the holistic triad into the book. And it's a little bit different than your other book, which is, this is my favorite, Victory in the Game of Life, and Victory in the Game of Life, and then of course The Long Shadow of Coach Paul Bear Bryant, which is really interesting stuff. This book's a little bit different. It's a self-help, and it interweaves football into that message.
Yes, it is, Paul. And if you look at the subtitle of the book, it's lifetime principles, that ageless principles that lead to success in any arena. And so we took the lessons that you and I and our teammates, our coaches taught us to be able not only to win football games and to excel on the athletic field, but how to win in the game of life. And so I've taken Coach Bryant's model, what I call his promise, and I've tried to apply that to everything that I've done in my business life as well as my family life. And as you well know, if you follow those principles, then you have a really good chance of coming out in good shape. And I wrote the Long Shadow of Coach Paul Bear Bryant when Coach Saban's first year at the University of Alabama. Mm-hmm. And it was not a very stellar year in terms of loss and wins. He was 7-6 that year. But I said in the last chapter of The Long Shadow of Coach Paul Bear Bryant that Coach Saban would be the next legend, because I could see him beginning to reinstill many of exactly the same things that Coach Bryant taught to us players. And I recognized at that point that he was really going to be the next legend there. And so I knew Coach Bryant. I knew him from a different perspective. As you know, we never really know our coaches. We just don't. During the time that we're playing with them, we don't know them. We respect them. We spend very little personal time with them. Mm-hmm. But later in life, I was very fortunate to get to know Coach Bryant from a totally different standpoint. And it was through a mutual friend. A coal miner from Jasper, Alabama, was a close friend of Coach Bryant, part of his inner circle. And he invited me into that circle. And we used to take the coaches down to Bay Point every year for 3 or 4 days of golfing and fishing and foolishness. And I got invited into that circle. And that's how I really got to know Coach Bryant. And then I became one of his doctors and actually did some surgery on him. I did a facelift on him. And I would never have told anybody, but he told the secret. He let the secret out the bag because he didn't want it to come around that he had tried to hide it. He was very proud of it. He was a very proud man. And this all happened at a time when he was about to break the record. And he was getting a lot of commercials, Ford Motor Company, the AT&T, the Have You Called Your Mama Today ad. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's one of
my favorite,
of all time. And he told me this himself. He said, my agent told me one day, he said, Coach, you look like hell on camera. He said, we got to get something done to your face. so he called. We were riding in a golf cart and down at Bay Point. He looked over at me and said, Gaylon, I got to get this stuff taken out of my neck. He said, can you do that? And I said, yes, sir, I can. So it took us 2 years to get him cleared. He was not in great shape medically. We finally got him cleared for the surgery and did the surgery. And during that period of time, I got to know him really, really well. We hid him out in my clinic in Birmingham at the time. And nobody knew he was there but Mayor Harmon and Billy Varney, who was his driver and bodyguard. Mm-hmm. And so I'd go by every morning and spend this for about 2 weeks. I'd spend an hour with him in the morning and then 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon because he was by himself. And after a while, he began to open up to me and talk to me about a lot of things that he was worried about. He knew it was going to be a coaching change at Alabama in the near future. And so he talked to me about that. And then later said, I want you to be involved. He said, I'm going to ask Dr. Thomas to put you on the selection committee. And I'll tell you, it's one of the hardest jobs that I ever had was to be involved in that but I wouldn't take anything for having been involved in that process and helping him through that transition.
How fortunate, boy, to spend some time. I would have give anything to play a round of golf with him after my career. Let's get one thing straight, though. Anybody that played for Coach Bryant, nobody would ever call him Bear, right, Gaylon?
No, nobody respected it. Nobody who respected him would do that. And as a matter of fact, I didn't know this until Mayor Harmon Molman at the time, who was his granddaughter. She reviewed the manuscript and for me. I wanted to make sure that everything that I said from the family standpoint and the personal standpoint was true, and that I didn't overstate anything or misquote him. And then, of course, I knew about the football part, but she said he never liked that nickname. He was not, he didn't like it. And when somebody called him that, he would respond to it, but it wasn't his favorite. He liked Paul. And so, but we players and his own coaching staff, none of them ever called him by his first name.
No.
He was always Coach. Always Coach Bryant.
Always Coach. Always. I do a segment on my show called The Bear Facts, but I would never call him Bear, but everybody knows him by that. I talk about his coaching styles and his philosophies are just amazing. And I get a lot of my material from your books, actually, Dr. McCollough. The stories you tell are just amazing. And, we'll talk a little bit about the Saban the process and the Bryant promise. It's in the paradigm, the lifestyle philosophy that's just weaving into these people and into their players. Let's start out. Let's talk a little bit about learning from history. This is what I really started out when I started reading the book. I thought to myself, boy, Dr. McCollough nailed it again. If you learn from history's winners. You talk a lot about that. Everybody needs a mentor, and I don't understand why coaches nowadays don't read like they should and learn more. People that don't read have no advantage over those who can't. How do you find the time to read, let alone write books, Dr. McCollough?
Well, you don't find time to write books. You make time to write books. In this period in my life, I used to play a lot of golf, and I don't play golf very much anymore at all, actually. And I don't fish and I don't hunt. And really, writing has become my avocation. And so that's what I do when I'm not at work, is I write. And these books that I write about Coach Bryant, and they're labors of love. They are fun books to write. Now, some of the books I've written are not fun books. When you write about the problems going on in America, and two of my latest books, one is Tomorrow in America, The Battle for the Souls of Our Children. And that was not an easy book to write, but it was something I felt on the heart I needed to say. I needed to get these things out there so that we parents and grandparents could begin to think about what's really going on right now and how we really need to rally and get together, all races and all religions. We need to get together and be one country, one union again. And yourself, teamwork. You got to love the members of your team. You got to respect the members of your team. And if you don't, and you don't respect each other, you're never going to be successful as a team. And we won't either with being a nation unless we do.
Oh my gosh. Je ne sais quoi. Right at the beginning of the book, you talk about that French phrase that just is difficult, but to put it in words, but someone's distinct and special. That comes from knowledge from previous coaches. Coach Bryant, I remember him going to Texas and learning from Darrell Royal and Emory Bellard about the wishbone. Coach Saban, he learns from all these coaches that he brings in, and then he sends them away as better coaches. You should pass on that knowledge. That's one reason I got into coaching, is because I was you got to, the talents that you have, God wants you to share them with others and pass them on.
Well, that was one of the reasons that I decided to write this book, Paul, because Coach Saban now, and has been ever since he came to Alabama, every coach that came to Alabama after Coach Bryant was compared to him.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody expected, to be the reincarnation of the second coming of Coach Bryant. And so Coach Saban does not like the word comparison, and I totally agree with that. But what I did in this book is I wanted to show the similarities. I wanted to show the similarities in the coaching style and the lessons that Coach Bryant taught and Coach Saban teaches, and Coach Lombardi taught. And the reason I brought Coach Vince Lombardi in is, to begin with, I Googled Coach Bryant's 50 most famous quotes. Well, you and I both know a lot of them by heart, but I wanted to see what's out there, 50 of Coach Bryant's most famous quotes. And then I decided that I would research 50 of Coach Lombardi's most famous quotes. And guess what? About 25 or 30% of them were identical.
Oh my gosh.
And so I don't know who was listening to who, but they were both playing off each other. Coach Bryant at the college level, Coach Lombardi, of course, in the NFL. And so when I wrote this manuscript, I sent it out, and you could see some of the people I sent it to that endorsed the book. And I sent it to Bill Curry. And Bill, of course, played for Coach Lombardi. And so I sent it to him, and Bill wrote me back, and he said, Gaylon, it's amazing that a lot of these things that Coach Bryant did, we heard exactly from Coach Lombardi. So that's why I included him. So the question I think that I wanted to answer in writing this book, the Saban process, the Bryant promise, is, are these programs, are these promises, are these processes or paradigms, are they reproducible? Is this a one and out or one and done, or are they reproducible? And what I found out is they are absolutely reproducible. If, number one, you learn all the details about them, and number two, if you follow them right to the letter. You can't take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and a little bit from here and you do experiment around. You have to take a process that's already been proven and follow it right to the letter. Now, what's the difference in the process and the promise and the paradigm? Because these are three things that I wanted to stress. I knew what Coach Bryant's promise, and his promise is very, very simple. And it said, you've heard this probably 1,000 times. Here's his promise. If you believe in yourself and have dedication and pride and never quit, you'll be a winner. The price of victory is high, but so are the rewards. So if you break that down, that's a promise. That's the promise he made to me as a recruit when I was being recruited. That's the promise that he made to my freshman class when we were with our first meeting with him. And you know what? He delivered on that promise. We did what he said, and we had dedication, we had pride, and we never quit. And yes, the price of victory was high. And Coach Saban talks about two disappointments. He said there are two disappointments that you're going to suffer in life. One is the pain. One is the pain of discipline, and the other is the pain of failure or disappointment. And so you can either put the time in and do the discipline, or you're going to be disappointed a lot of times. So then I looked at Coach Saban's process, and I found the name of Zeiss, a fellow by the name of Zeiss, and I can't think of his first name. But he did an interview with Coach Saban several years ago, and apparently Coach opened up to him, and it's the best article that I ever found about him. And so I duplicated, or I reproduced his interview in there and broke it down little by little. But the Saban process is really not that complicated. It's really not. And you can see that I put it in the book. And basically you can boil it down to saying this: find what you're going to do the very best you can, stay focused in the moment. Don't worry about outcomes, worry about being your best right now. And if you do that on a consistent basis, you will be a winner. Now, if you break it down, that's exactly what Coach Bryant taught, just different words, but it's the same message.
You're right. I tell it on my show quite a bit. I'll never forget the last time I had you on and you wrote about it in your books. I heard you talking on ESPN the other day that they were in Coach Lombardi too. Coach Bryant and Coach Lombardi were born the same year. Maybe that's why they had a lot of the same mentors and other coaches that they followed. And, I had Gene Stallings on the book, and he says that he wrote almost all that book of the 1961 What Makes a Championship Football Team. But
building a championship football team.
A football championship team. And
it was supposedly Coach Bryant's book, but Beebe Stallings wrote most of it, and Coach he talked to him, but it was his program. But Beebe's actually put the book together.
Absolutely.
Did a great job with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful let's talk about some of the other quotes in your book. And you talked about there are two pains in life, the pain of discipline, the pain of disappointment. And, Coach Bryant told his players, I'm going to make practices really hard. If you're going to quit, I want it to be in practice, not in the fourth quarter of a game. That goes back to the old gut checks, which all teams are, great coaches. Lombardi was known for it. Coach Saban and Coach Bryant obviously was known for gut checks. But Coach Bryant could, gosh, I've coached for 20 years, Gaylon, so I've seen a lot of coaching styles and a lot of different coaches. But Coach Bryant could measure a kid's heart more so than other coaches. Even when I had Coach Perkins on, God rest his soul, a couple times before he passed away, who I played for 3-4 years, Coach Perkins, he always suggested that young coaches should have a psychology degree so they can, Coach Bryant was a master motivator.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I tried, after I played, to get the University of Alabama Department of Psychology to give him an honorary doctorate degree, because he understood the human mind, and he knew how to get into your mind, and he knew how to, to encourage you and get you to do your best. And the psychology department wouldn't do it, but the law school gave him a doctor of jurisprudence, an honorary doctor of jurisprudence. And I've got a photograph of Coach Bryant with his graduation hat on and his tassel, and he was so proud of that. But yeah, football is a mind game as well as a physical game, and the average fan watching the game probably does not understand the mental aspect of it. And one of the examples that I like to use, if you can imagine a chessboard. In chess, you have strategy and how are you going to move those men around, or the pieces around, but you move one at a time. But in the game of football, you have the same strategy, but you're moving 22 people at the same time. And the longest play usually takes no longer than 6 seconds. And that's a return of a kickoff, may take 8 or 10 seconds. But the average running play takes 3 seconds, 4 seconds? And the average pass play takes maybe 5 seconds. So you're having all of these people moving. And then the other aspect of the game is something that we centers had to deal with. A lot of people don't realize that. But a play is called, and you go to the line of scrimmage. And then the quarterback looks at the defense and may run the play that's called or may change the play. Now, if the quarterback changes the play, the offensive center has got to change the blocking scheme. So all of this is going on in a matter of 2 to 3 seconds, and then you have to make these quick decisions. Here's something else that the average fan doesn't know, that when I was a high school quarterback at one time, when we had a pass pattern, we knew exactly what pattern every receiver was going to run. So we knew where they were going to be and knew where to throw the ball. And all you had to do is look to see if the guy was open and hit him. But now then you call a pass play and you go to the line of scrimmage. None of the receivers know where they're going to be. Because they take what the defense gives them, right? Right. And so the quarterback standing back there, seeing 5 receivers out there, making little individual decisions based on what the defense has given him. And then he's got to make a perfect throw with all those 300-pound guys coming at him. So the game is a whole lot more complicated than the average fan realizes. And I learned a long time ago, we shouldn't be critical of what we see on the field, because those are just 19, 20, 21-year-old kids that are out there doing their best. And many times we don't really know what we're talking about or evaluating it as fans.
It's the most difficult sport. It's the most interesting sport. It's because of all those variables. Coach Lombardi himself said football is as much situation as it is action, and because you have to have all of them on the same page. But Coach Bryant he told us that we were special. I remember him saying that, and it reminded me reading your books that, that was one of his. I mean, he wanted us to be special, and he talked about class and pride. Class and pride, and us being special requires when much is given, the old right, and from the Bible, when much is given, much is expected. Talk a little bit about those lines that he.
Well, a lot of people, you think about, what do you mean by class? Show your class, and he used to say that all the time. Show your class. Here's an example. We were told at the end of the football game, run off the field. Don't dabble around on the field and go celebrate and that sort of thing in the stands, whatnot. End of the game, run to the dressing room, do all your celebration, and there were your teammates. And if you won the game, you're celebrating and doing all the backslapping. If you lost the game, shed all your tears right there together. But what he said is, when you walk out that door on the way to the bus, the people who watch you walk to the bus should never know whether you won or lost the game. Maintain your class and maintain your pride, regardless of the outcome. And it's something that I say all the time to my grandchildren, and is this: don't ever let the highs get too high nor the lows too low. And what I think he meant by showing your class is to be steady. Be steady in every situation. And I think if you really look at Bryce Young, probably exemplifies that as much as anybody that I ever saw. And Jalen Hurts was great about it too. But you could watch Bryce Young after a play, and you really would not be able to tell by the expression or his body language whether or not he threw a touchdown pass or it was an incomplete pass. And that's what Coach Saban means by living in the moment. And I mentioned in the book about Tiger Woods. I mean, I used to watch Tiger Woods, and I wondered, how in the world does he stay so focused on what's going on around him with all of these things, and yet can stay focused? And what I learned, as I put in the book, is that, of course, Tiger's father was Special Forces, and his mother was from Asia. I think I don't remember what country, but his father saw that Tiger had a sports psychologist who taught Zen, which is one of the Japanese philosophies. And I wrote the principles of Zen in the book. And they follow right along with everything that Coach Saban talked about, Coach Bryant talked about, and what Tiger Woods' coach talked about. And that, don't worry about the last shot. Don't worry about the upcoming shot. Worry about the shot that you're making right now. And maintain your cool.
Well said. On page 98 in the book, you said, over the years, I studied highly successful people. In every case, I found two common denominators. One or more of their mentors offered sage advice and provided consistent encouragement and training that was designed to help them become mentally as well as physically resilient. The highly successful person diligently followed the advice and watched the ambitions materialize. Coach Bryant learned how to lose. Now, and I know, maybe people out there don't know, that Coach Bryant was highly competitive. But when he lost, I, as a coach, could never stand up to his class and his principles and his integrity. And he learned that from Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma when he broke Bud Wilkinson's 31-game win streak. And Bud Wilkinson came in the locker room to Alabama and congratulated him. Coach Bryant on that day said he would never be a sore loser, and by God, he wasn't.
Yep. Well, I can give you a personal example of that, where Coach Bryant duplicated what you just talked about with Coach Wilkinson, and I did not know that. 1962, we're ranked number one in the country, and we go to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech. We had Georgia Tech and Auburn. That was our season. That's what was left in the season. So we're number one in the country, and we go over to Georgia Tech, and he puts in a brand new offense. He throws out the entire offensive plan that we've used to win 8 consecutive ball games, and for whatever reason, one of the assistants convinced him to throw that out, and we came up with an offense called red, white, and blue, which meant the quarterback, I could either snap the ball to the quarterback or through his legs to a person in the fullback position, or you put the quarterback in motion. Anyway, there were 3 formations, and it was unbeatable on paper. Unbeatable. We were so proud. we go over to Atlanta and we're getting ready to show off our new offense. Well, we get clamored. I mean, we played like heck, and it was awful. And we finally scored with about a minute and a half to go in the game, and tried to go for 2, and we didn't make 2. We didn't make the 2 points. So we were 1 point down. Lo and behold, we caused a fumble on the 3rd play when we kicked off. We got the ball back, drove it down to the 15-yard line, 3rd down and goal. And so I was standing next to him, and one of the assistants convinced him, let's throw the touchdown pass. And if he's not open, it's to Bill Battle. The pass was to Bill Battle. Yep. And he told the quarterback, throw the ball. If he's open, hit him. If he's not open, throw the ball over his head. Well, he was trying to throw the ball over Battle's head, but Bill is such a tremendous competitor. He jumped probably higher in the air than he ever had, touched the ball, tipped the ball, and it fell into a Georgia Tech player's hand. And so we lost the game. Now, that's the preamble. Mm-hmm. So following that game, we went to the dressing room. And, of course, we're sitting in there with our hands in our face and face in our hands and tears rolling down our eyes because we knew we'd lost the championship. We lost the national championship on that day. And so Coach Bryant went over to the Georgia Tech dressing room and congratulated them, which was not easy for him to do. And then he came back in our dressing room. And in that day, rather than saying the Lord's Prayer, he led us in prayer. He said, take a knee. So we all did. And here was his prayer. Dear Lord, forgive me. Let these players forgive me. For if I'd stayed at home today, they'd have won the ball game. And wow. And you look at that, and all of a sudden, with everybody, what did he just say? He didn't miss a tackle. He didn't miss a pass. He didn't miss a block, but he took full credit for the loss. And then all of a sudden, the atmosphere in the dressing room changed. And then he said, I'm really proud of you guys out there today. You didn't get beat today. Time just ran out on you. That's the first time I'd ever heard those words. Time just ran out on you. He said, if you'd have had another 2 minutes, I guarantee you'd have won the ball game. And so with that, he said, now, if you continue with what I saw out there today in the last 2 minutes of this ball game, we'll be okay. He said, we're going to play Auburn next week and in Birmingham. And he said, if y'all get sad and go let this affect you, we go down there and get beat. So we beat Auburn, I think, 36-3 the following week. And then played Oklahoma. We played Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl and won that game 17-0. And so what he did was he took a loss. He took a bad situation, and by the way he handled that, he lifted the team up, and we finished the season with great pride. And today, if the championship were decided after the bowl games, we'd have been national champions, because we beat Oklahoma, I think, which was number 2 at that time. So things change, but the coaches make such a difference in terms of the attitude of the players.
Oh, absolutely. I believe the players are definitely, they take their mannerisms, their demeanor, their attitude right from their coach. He never blamed anyone. He never blamed the referees. He never blamed the players, the coaches. It was amazing how he always had the right thing to say. And, there are always things that, seemed always in control. You only lost 4 games in 3 years there. The standard was high. Talk about, our listeners probably want to hear you snapping to Kenny Stabler and Joe Namath with those.
Well, I didn't snap to Stabler. He was a freshman. And then
was he? Okay, freshman couldn't play back then. That's right.
Yeah, but Joe Namath and Steve Sloan.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think Steve Sloan's probably the most underappreciated quarterback that ever played at Alabama, because the last year, the year we won the championship in 1964, Joe was hurt that year, and he didn't play but about 60% of the time. And Steve Sloan played 40% of all the time, regardless of what the situation was. Mm-hmm. And so Steve was a great quarterback and a great individual. So it was really something to be able to play with Namath. And he was a very special player. You could tell from the day he walked on the field down there that he was unique. And I did an interview of the special that they did. Let's see, I think it was NFL Sports did it with one of the networks. And I was interviewed there, and they asked me, they asked me probably 25 questions. And then afterwards they said, is anything else you'd like to say that we didn't ask you? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, there's something I think I would like to say. And they said, all right, what is it? I said, the shame is the world never saw Joe Namath at his peak. Mm-hmm. Because when he came there, he was the greatest athlete I've ever seen. And he injured his knee, but look what he accomplished with a gimp knee. Just imagine what he could have accomplished had he been well through that whole time. And so even when he did play, he was in terrible pain his senior year. And you know, I think we owe so much to Steve Sloan for that.
Wow, there's so much to talk about. NIL, you talk a little bit about the transfer portal and NIL. It's my feeling is, you know, the kid, they have to prove themselves before they get money. It's gotten out of control. We need regulation. What are your other thoughts on NIL, Dr. McCollough?
Well, I think it's wrong not to give the kids any money. Mm-hmm. When we were there, they gave us what they call laundry money. It was approved by the NCAA, and it was $15 every other week. Well, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but you know, in 1961 and 1962, you could buy a hamburger for 25 cents. And so $15 every other week gave us enough money where we could go to the movie, or we could go out and get a hamburger, or we could take a date somewhere. But if to say they don't deserve anything is wrong, but I think that it's gone overboard now. I'm afraid that what's happening with NIL is that basically professional athletics has gone now into the amateur arena. Mm-hmm. And so what you've got now is pretty much a semi-pro situation rather than amateur athletics in college. And I think it's just a matter of time before they're going to have to set some rules and some limits and standards on that, because right now it's like the Wild West show out there.
Absolutely. I want to, if it's okay, I'd like to read part of this, which is the most impactful in page 152 and 153. Let's review the two legendary coaches whose promise and process are featured in the book. Coach Saban's process. Coach Saban says the good enough is attitude is not where we're looking for. We have to get used to every opportunity to improve individually so we can improve and collectively. It's not human nature to be great. It's human nature to survive, to be average and do what you have to do to get by. That is normal. When you have something good happen, it's the special people that can stay focused and keep paying attention to the detail. That is, like Coach Bryant said, getting better every day, just like Coach Bryant said. And then he said, that's how to be satisfied with what you've accomplished. And then Coach Bryant's promise, you know, well, what are you doing here? Tell me why you're here. If you are not here to win a national championship, you're in the wrong place. You are special. I don't want my players to be other students. I want you to be special in the classroom and on the field. There are going to be days when you think there's no more to give, but if you reach deep down, you'll always find something left. I remember him saying that. You're going to have pride in class. And then Coach Lombardi's paradigm. Winning is a habit. Watch your thoughts, you become beliefs. Watch your beliefs, they become work. Watch your words, they become your actions, and your actions become your habits, and your habits become who your character is. Wow. That is good stuff, Gaylon. Talk about how those three are very similar in respects to coaching.
And look at the results. And so you ask yourself, can you duplicate it? Is it reproducible? The answer is absolutely. But the problem here is that there are very, very few people in the world that are willing to be as committed as was Coach Lombardi, as committed as Coach Bryant, as committed is Coach Saban. Coach Saban may be the hardest working man that I've ever known, and I don't know him well, don't get me wrong, but witnessed. And I don't know this for a fact, but I've been told by some pretty reliable sources that he and Terry actually plan. They get up, set their clock at a certain time every morning and get up and have 45 minutes together. That's just their time every day. And it's usually like from 6 o'clock to 7:30 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the day, he is all football. And she knows that, and he knows that. And so the man is just 24/7. It's just amazing. But that's what you got to do if you're going to achieve that level of success. A lot of people can achieve success and be good, but the great ones are the ones that put in the extra time and the extra effort.
Motivations when your dreams put on work clothes, Gaylon.
Yeah.
And I'll leave the interview with this from a word from our mentor and our coach and our patriarch. The old lessons, work, self-discipline, sacrifice, teamwork, fighting to achieve, aren't being taught by many people other than football coaches these days. This was 40 years ago. The football coach has a captive audience and can teach these lessons because the communication lines between himself and his players are wide open, and it's not between the kids and the parents. We better coach these kids lessons. The country's future population will be made. He recognized what's happening back then, that the great Billy Graham said, a coach will impact a kid's life more in 1 year than most people do in a lifetime.
Yeah.
That's powerful words.
Well, I happened to be playing for Coach Bryant during the hippie generation. Back in the early 1960s with the hippie movement, make love, not war, just throw out all discipline. What if it feels good, do it. Mm-hmm. And that was the mentality that was sort of circulating around in our age group. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of my contemporaries that were at Woodstock and running around doing all these crazy things. And Coach Bryant kept us in line. He kept us in tow so that we weren't going to get in any trouble. And you look back on it, and I think it's like discipline. And even though a parent might be a very tough disciplinarian, ultimately the child respects it and never forgets the good part of it. And so the same thing is true with our coach. I think we love those coaches that disciplined us into becoming the best we can be. You hear players all the time talk about, well, he's a player's coach. Well, I think what they mean is he's a good old boy. That's the good old boy type attitude with the players and the coaches. I think you got to separate that. And that's something I've learned in my own practice. If you're the head coach, if you're the CEO, you can't really hang out and commiserate with the rest of your staff.
That's right.
You've got to maintain a little level of separation there.
Absolutely. It's always a joy, Gaylon. Thank you for spending the time with us. You're always one of my favorite guests, and we'll talk about your other two books maybe next time.
Paul, thank you very much. I just want to say one thing. All the proceeds of my books go into a foundation to support education for young people. I do not write books to try to make money. Mm-hmm. So anybody interested in the book, call my office, and you can put the number up there if you will, or go to my website, McColloughPlasticSurgery.com, and you can order the book online. It's not in bookstores yet. So now you can go ahead and get your copy before it gets in stores.
But I got a copy. Thank you so much, Dr. McCollough. God bless you, and keep grinding. You look great, and I love the book. I love all your books.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, Paul.
Thanks. Bye-bye. I want to thank Dr. Gaylon McCollough again, an amazing man, very interesting, fascinating, and highly motivated, to say the least. He only lost 4 games in 3 years at Alabama. Next week, this gentleman only lost 6 games in 4 years at Alabama. That's right. Next week, the Wizard of Oz, Ozzie Newsome, joins the show. Coach Bryant called him the best end in Alabama history, and that includes the great Don Hutson. So Ozzie's a college football Hall of Famer, pro football Hall of Famer, and front office executive in the NFL for over 30 years. Now he is the executive vice president of player personnel for the Baltimore Ravens. He is on next week, so you don't want to miss that. I want to thank Dr. McCollough again. Don't forget, Coach's Corner Monday and Wednesday. The Bear Facts and Coach Tripp's Tips will replay the show on Tuesday. Thursday, local sports report for the Pensacola area here in the Redneck Riviera. Thanks for watching the show, everybody. Have a great sports weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Looking for a better car buying experience? With the Step 1 Advantage from Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola, receive no-hassle market-based pricing or incentives by pre-ordering. Looking to sell or trade? Our dedicated team will even come to you. Plus, every vehicle sold at Step 1 supports local charities right in your neighborhood. Experience the Step 1 Advantage at Buick GMC, Fort Walton Beach, and Pensacola today.
75 years of service in high-tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High-tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than the simple painted brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Did you know there's a place where you can get good neighbor service and surprisingly great rates on your home and auto insurance? Yep, and that place is, ta-da, State Farm. Here's the deal. State Farm agent Will Rentschler is your go-to agent in Pensacola, Florida for the service you deserve at the price that you want. So stop shopping around. State Farm agent Will Rentschler has you covered. Call 850-433-4678 for your surprisingly great rates today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Legal disclaimer, individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.